Welcome to the Beauties podcast, where we talk about everything you need to know about women's sports. From the grassroots to the pros, we got it all. Today on the show, we have 2 USPORT interviews with a commit and a recent grad, an LPGA hole-in-one, and our March Madness plans. Here are your hosts, Addie and Cowie.
Okay, episode 16 looks, feels, everything about it is different. I am sitting solo in the studio with fancy new lights on my face. I feel great about it, and Ads is at home sitting on my phone via FaceTime because of the good old pandemic.
What a time. What a time. I'm there in spirit at the Beauty Sports desk.
Honestly, buddy, I'm just going to scooch this chair closer to me. It's got your sweater on it. It's got you.
Oh,
you're
that feels good.
I miss you.
That feels good right there. I miss you too. This is, you know what? We are dedicated though. We figured out a way to get this done, and not only this piece of it with us talking, but 2 interviews.
I know, which again felt weird to do by myself, but we had some great guests today. Both young women are so well spoken, and I can't wait to just continue to follow their careers. I think that's one of the most fun parts for me, is follow their careers, have them back on the show, whatever the next steps are, whether that's life or sports or whatever, right?
Well, and I think that was one of the coolest parts about having, Mia and Lilla on, is Mia's just at the beginning of her USports career, just getting into it, just went through that whole process. And then Lilla, had an incredible career at U of R. And now we get to see the progression of that after USports. So yeah, 2 completely different takes, and so fun. So awesome.
Yeah, it was super fun. One basketball player / model / taekwondo black belt, which also mind-boggling in Mia. And then Lilla, yeah, just an incredible career. And, she touched on, which we're going to get to hear coming up in the show, it was a weird thing for her through the pandemic, and, thought she was going to step away from the game, and then made the decision kind of last minute to come back, and had one of the best careers or seasons of her career, right? So yeah, it was great.
Yeah, and that whole perspective, I think, is like an insider's look on what it truly was to be an athlete, to go through the pandemic. And essentially, when you're in it, it's your life. Yeah. And then for them to be like, oh, take a year off. It's like, whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Crazy.
Absolutely. So getting stuck in your house, did you get to watch any more sports this week or what?
It's been on TV constantly. Very strong positive is that, sun up to sundown, I was able to watch pretty much everything. Huge LPGA tournament happening this past week with Nana Cortez Madsen coming out with the win at the 2022 Honda LPGA in Thailand. And she just crushed it. She did unbelievable, 26 under. And her fiance, this was, now I could get into the nitty gritty detail.
Yeah.
Her fiance is her caddy.
Yeah, which that is that's special to me, that because Ashley and I often say, so my wife is a teacher and I work on a sales team in the ag industry, farming industry. And I love her very much. She's an incredible human being, but I don't want to work with my wife. I don't.
Yeah.
And I think that is a very unique, special situation to have your partner caddy for you on the LPGA. Oh man, must be a special relationship. That's cool.
Well, I was just going to say, because it's not even like a sibling rivalry, like Brooke and her sister that they have when they're on the road together. It's like, this is your fiance.
I know. You got to get in bed at the end of the night. That's the thing, right?
Could you imagine, you're disagreeing on what club to use on the 18th, and it's just such a different dynamic. I thought it was so cool. I didn't realize that at the beginning of the tournament, and then they did this whole thing on them, and they took the picture together at the end with the trophy and all that, and I was like, that's a pretty special moment too, right? You get to travel the world together, you get to be in all these tournaments together. I thought that was a pretty cool thing.
For sure. We saw glimpses of that too at the Olympics this year, right? There was actually a handful of partners, and in most scenarios they weren't on the same team. And so that was another thing for them, was like being weeks and weeks apart. But I think to experience, you're right, experience something that's significant in your career, winning, for in the case of Nana, winning a championship and having your spouse beside you is incredible.
Oh, for sure. And then even looking at the major events that happened throughout that tournament, like Danielle Kang.
I know.
A hole in one, baby.
Do you remember when Sass was golfing in the Tamarack?
Oh yeah. 12th hole.
I know. And we all witnessed it and then lost our marbles about it. Can you imagine doing that on the LPGA tour?
Oh, it's unbelievable. 132 yards with a 9-iron, hole number 8. Just like one of those things that that's going to be stitched in her mind forever, because it's like that does not happen very often.
I know, and left her in the top 10 again.
And Brooke Henderson again.
I know, these women are just, yeah.
They will for sure win a tournament this year, no question. Both Kang and Henderson. They're just too dominant right now to not come out with a...
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I think Kang, for what we saw her to start the season, winning, right?
Right.
And now it's like, but top 10 is... Yeah, I agree that Brooke, we're going to see her in that number 1 spot sooner than later here. She's golfing really well.
Absolutely. And so that was amazing to watch this past weekend just thinking about all the kind of big headlines that happened this weekend with the NWSL, with Delta, signing on as a major, the official airline of the NWSL. And that was a big conversation that we had last week with the WNBA and the chartered flights and things like that. And then the NWSL comes out guns a-blazing with Delta.
Yep.
They get a new commissioner.
Yeah, saw that too.
And Jessica Berman.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So I'm like, holy man, there's so much movement across all the leagues right now.
I know. And that's, I think, we're probably going to see the domino effect of the WNBA taking note of the position that the NWSL has taken here with the Delta Airlines partnership. You got to hope we will. And then I think great news in that Jessica Berman addition, right? She comes out of being the deputy commissioner of the National Lacrosse League. And so is going to bring a ton of experience that I think the NWSL will certainly needs, for one. But I hope we continue to see. I love the female leadership, and I think that's another positive note. The NWSL this year has done a lot of the right things, eh?
Oh my gosh, the 2 new franchises coming in with very strong ownership and leadership in those organizations. Like the amount of support, the CBA, now a new commissioner. You're right. That domino effect is happening in such a positive way in that league that it's going to be awesome. And I agree with her already having that experience from the National Lacrosse League. That is just she's going to come in guns a-blazing. Yeah, she knows exactly what she needs to do, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what sport it is. There's parallels. If you've worked in professional sports and at that level, you can bring all of those transferable skills into soccer, which is going to be awesome.
Well, yeah, and huge name being brought into the NWSL there, and then even in the PHF, a huge hiring with Boston, Willie O'Ree, the legend. Yeah, they brought onto the front office of the Boston Pride. Like, holy man, they and just like we were just saying, all leagues across the boards are in full throttle right now. Yeah,
it doesn't matter where you're 100% right. Like, we saw the rivalry rematch with the PWHPA in Pittsburgh. It's everywhere. We've said it before, but I feel like we understated it a few episodes ago where I think I said it, like, the momentum is so clear, but doesn't it over the last 2-3 weeks even? It feels like we're just on this upward tick.
Oh yeah, we're in complete overdrive right now. Yeah. Complete overdrive, because even with that, we were very interested to see what was going to change within the NCAA March Madness for women this year. Like, we were all going to be all over that. And so the brackets are going to be revealed tonight.
Yep.
And the first time in history, it will mimic the men's bracket to a T.
Which is huge.
So what that means for everybody is that before this March Madness, the women have had kind of a different bracket, but now it's going to go to, for the first time, 68 teams will be involved. 32 teams automatically get their bid for winning their conference tournaments, and then the remainders are at large. So that actually happens tonight, Sunday, where they are going to be announcing and revealing the brackets. And it's just such a monumental day for D1 basketball, women's basketball in general, because it shows what happened last year with Sedona Prince was maybe arguably one of the biggest shifting points for equality in D1 to happen yet. Like,
I would say I'm not going to sweep that statement of in history, because I haven't read the history books. There's got to be monumental things, but specific to basketball and specific to female sports in general, in the way that she was, and that's one of, like, there's lots of pros and cons of social media, but how quickly that information spread, and also the response and how quick NCAA responded to that and doing their whole inquiry and things. And now to see it 1 year, calendar year later, and we have an exact parallel to the men's, which is exactly what we need it to be. The same thing.
Well, exactly. It just needs to be the same thing, but their own identity, which we talked about too, which, they're in different places. They have their
different
own
logos.
logo.
That's right. Yep.
But it's organized the same. And it's the one thing that I've always absolutely loved about CrossFit.
Yeah. We
CrossFit, when you get
to,
when you get into the CrossFit championships, it's the same. It's the same workouts. Everything is the same. It's just the men's division and the women's divisions, and they're respected equally. And that's where it needs to go. And that's where that change needs to happen.
For sure.
So this is a huge day for women's basketball, huge day. And I cannot wait to watch it tonight, the bracket. And we still have to get together and do our old bracket.
We're good. Well, we got till Wednesday, right? 16th is tip off. So, we might have to do it again like this over FaceTime. But either way, we're doing it before Wednesday, March 16th, because that's a must.
That is an absolute must. And then also the WNBA draft has been, it's on April 11th from 7 to 9 p.m. on ESPN. And that's like when we watch the lottery, the Mystics are coming in hot. So that's also going to be perfect timing, because the championship game for the women is on April 3rd, literally bingo. And then you're right into the WNBA draft. I think it's scheduled and programmed flawlessly.
Absolutely. I know we got a couple of notes, but I was, local Manitoba girl, Ashton Bell, came home with an Olympic gold medal, member of the UMD Bulldogs. I saw on her social media, she made a surprise appearance as she was on her way to the rivalry rematch in Duluth. And man, Bulldogs showed up. Back to the Frozen Four they go, which was wildly, I think, probably there was a lot of skeptics that didn't think that they were going to be able to do it, but they're back.
What a wild ride that has been deciding that Frozen Four. And I would say maybe the biggest game was Northeastern beating Wisconsin. I
agreed.
Cannot believe, not saying that Northeastern isn't a strong program. They're incredible. But Wisconsin?
When was the last time Wisconsin wasn't in it?
Well, yeah.
I don't actually know the answer to that, but it feels like a long time ago.
It feels
they've had an incredible hockey program for a long time.
Wow. Yeah, that was to see that come out, and Northeastern pulling it out. That's that's a monumental shift for that organization, for that team. Huge. So before we get into the interviews, because I know that, you had such awesome conversations with them. There is one thing with my time being spent at home.
Yes.
That which I found out that I just need to get off my chest, Cowie. I've got to talk to you about it.
Fill me in. What's up?
So the Olympics, right? When you go to the Olympics.
Yes. And
you make it onto the podium.
Yeah.
You make between $10,000 and $20,000 per appearance. So depending on, gold, silver, bronze, all that kind of stuff, right?
Okay.
So I'm watching the Paralympics, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And I do some research and I'm scooting around online.
Yeah.
$0 for them if they make it to the podium. No money. Paralympians receive $0 when they make it onto the podium.
Well, that's an issue.
And I literally sat there and I was like, that can't be right. Who pays them?
Who pay okay, let's rewind for a sec. When Olympians get on the podium, is this their own countries pay them? Do we know?
I think it's the Olympic Committee.
Okay, then that's an even more humongous problem.
I'm going to look into that.
Make the conscious choice to, okay, we're going to research that because if that is the case, that the IOC pays Olympians and not Paralympians, that needs to be a story we talk about a little more.
Yeah, no, for sure. I got to do a little bit more digging as to where the funds come from. But it was it was an article that came up and I read, and it's confirmed that when they make it to a podium, $0. Wow. And I just thought, what a hard thing to comprehend. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it.
I agree. That's a very hard thing to comprehend if that is we'll dig into that. Because though we talked about it, and I've watched lots of Paralympics this week, they're incredible athletes. We said that last episode, and they absolutely deserve to have a paycheck if they make a podium, just like anyone else did in the Olympics.
Agreed. So it's out in the universe now. If any of the listeners know any more about that, please feel free to reach out because we'll be doing some digging because that blew my mind. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. No kidding. You know what? And we talked about that last episode. It is harder to watch the Paralympics, or there's less news about it. And it sure as heck reminds me exactly of Usports, right? And so we talked about that last week. Just how challenging it is to follow Usport athletics. And so our attempt, and we talked about this off the top of the show, was to start to talk about Usports. So I had the pleasure, and I'm saddened that you didn't get to join today, but I had the pleasure of talking to two lovely individuals. So I think we're going to jump to my conversation with Wnba BANMANN, also known as Mia, who's worked for you, Addie. And she's a lovely young lady from here in Winnipeg who is pursuing a basketball career at UBC next season. So I think let's jump to that. What do you think?
I think that sounds awesome. Can't wait to hear from it.
All right. So today we're super excited that we actually get to talk to two individuals throughout the course of the show today that are USports athletes. First up on the show, we have Wnba BANMANN, also known as Mia. Mia joins us on the show. She is a UBC Thunderbird commit, a 6'1", which makes me feel really short, Mia. Post guard has put up incredible numbers, which has landed her an opportunity to pursue post-secondary next year at UBC. Welcome to the show, Mia.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you could join us. Addie and I last episode, we were talking a lot about USports and how sometimes it's really hard to follow USports. And so this is kind of our way to get to talk to athletes who are going to pursue that. We're going to talk to another individual today who has had a great USports career playing hockey at the University of Regina. But I'm so happy you could take the time today to join us on the show.
Yes, of course.
You bet. So, one of the things when we were looking you up on the internet, because that's kind of one of the first things that's easiest to do. The first thing that jumped out to Addie and I is in your profile, it says that you are a tap athlete, a targeted athlete of Manitoba. Can you explain, like, what is that? What does that even mean?
Yeah. So TAP is a club team now. It used to be called CP for Center for Performance, but it has recently kind of changed its name. So it started off as more of just a training program where they would take, they would have tryouts and they would kind of form a team that would train throughout the weeks. And then the girls would also play on other club teams and compete against other teams in the province. But it has now become kind of a club team. And that is kind of where I started my club basketball career, I guess. I had started playing for TAP in my grade 8 year.
Yeah.
And I've been with them ever since. And they have kind of developed me from being that new beginner who hasn't really touched a basketball to kind of the player I am today, going on to play for university.
No kidding.
So, yeah.
Okay, I mean, I love that. I think that's something, you know, I was obviously, I didn't play basketball. I'm too short for basketball, but I played hockey, and played a bunch of things. And I just love the targeted direction of that, right? Where you had, obviously, you've kind of grown in a program. You probably have a ton of friends you've built inside of that program. And obviously you attribute a lot of your basketball growth to that. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing.
Definitely, yes.
Cool. So I do have, you know, we checked out some of your stats, and I think they're super impressive. You know, 23 points a game average, 67% from the free throw line, 63% from the field goal range, 14.5 rebounds. What do you attribute most to the success that you have had outside of obviously developing through TAP? But what do you think's made you the basketball player you are today?
Well, definitely, I think the most important is kind of the love that I have for the sport and the hours of dedication that have kind of come from that, because you can't really do that if you don't enjoy what you're playing. And then also just my teammates and my coaches. I think over the years, I've had to kind of play many different roles depending on what team I'm on.
For sure.
And I have gotten kind of tips on how to do the little things and how to contribute to my team in whichever way I need. And I think I've just taken those over the years and brought them all together to kind of lead me to the success that I've had.
I love that. And I think it's one thing you notice, and you'll notice as you continue to grow up through sports. And I think about all the things that I've learned through sports that you don't even know you're learning through sports. You just get to learn them because you have a passion for the game. And then someday you'll sit in a chair and have a job and look back just like I do now and think like, oh man, I think sports is such a blessing. And I think, yeah, you're clearly super grounded and have a great approach to what's made you who you are. So
yeah, it's definitely changed who I am, both like on and off of the court.
Yeah. Totally. And just a different level of confidence too, right? When you believe in yourself.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna jump away from sports for a second, because I've also heard through the grapevine that you actually also have a modeling career happening. So, how do you juggle that with being an elite athlete?
Yeah, it's definitely hard sometimes. Like school has always been my first priority. So having school and basketball and athletic training and modeling and having to make time for like family and friends, of course.
Yep.
It's definitely a struggle at times, and I've definitely had my ups and downs with it. But I think it's really helped me having that kind of pressure to learn how to kind of manage my time and how to have that routine. And I've learned over the years how to do that. So
absolutely.
I think it's really helpful.
I think, yeah, you know what? Having to juggle all of that as a high school athlete is going to set you up for an immense amount of success being a student athlete at a university level, because you've already mastered it. It's just now, evolving it to a new place with new people and new challenges. So that's great. I do want to touch on, your commitment to UBC. What was that recruiting process like for you? Was that a standout did you get to go on a visit? I know COVID probably threw some wrenches, but how was that recruiting process for you?
Yeah. So I'd reached out to UBC, kind of last year in my grade 11 year. Mm-hmm. And when it was actually the the previous coaching staff. So
Okay.
there was just a switch in coaching staff.
Yeah.
So I had talked to the previous staff, and then once that switch happened, I kind of transferred to Coach Erin, who's there now.
Right.
And I was able to kind of get on the phone with her, learn what she wanted, and she could learn what I was looking for. And I was actually able to go out there this summer, which was really nice.
Awesome.
I got to meet her and the rest of the coaching staff and some of my teammates next year.
Yep.
And it was a really good environment. And I think that was something that really pushed me, and seeing the school as well, the beautiful campus. So
it is.
That definitely helped.
I know. I've been, my mom actually did some schooling out at UBC when I was growing up. I think she did her either master's or PhD out there. But you can't find a nicer place. And after spending the winter that we've had here, like, you've got to have a level of excitement just to get the heck out of Winnipeg and get somewhere nicer.
I will not miss that minus 50 degree winter.
No kidding.
I'll be honest.
No doubt. Do you know, what size of recruiting classes come in with you? Are you going to have a bunch of first years along with you, or what size of recruiting classes coming in?
There are 4 of us this year.
Very cool.
And three had graduated last year.
Okay.
Or this year, I guess. So 3 are going out, 4 coming in.
Amazing.
But it's a pretty young team, especially with COVID. I think lots of people are in the same place with that because people have lost that 1 year. So their last year's class is actually made up of 2 years worth of athletes, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I know. It's so happy that you're going to enter into university and in a time where I think you're going to get to thoroughly enjoy it and hopefully leave a lot of the rules and regulations that we've had to live through for the last couple of years behind and just get to play your sport and be an athlete and student.
Yes, I definitely have my hopes up.
For sure.
It's looking pretty good.
For sure. Well, I can't thank you enough. You are an incredible young woman. I can't wait to follow your career. I wish you nothing but the most success. When you get out to BC, Addie and I will for sure be following you, but I can't thank you enough for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Take care.
All right. Bye.
Okay, Ads, I got to talk to you about one thing that stuck out to me from my interview with Mia was her conversation about time management. And I think that's something I want to talk about it because I think that's something that I'm not sure we do justice for our athletes who are leaving, whatever sport that is. And the fact that Mia understands that of herself, that her modeling career, her academics, going to St. Mary's Academy here, being, in Taekwondo and now in high level basketball, like she basically has prepared herself when her family and her people around her have prepared her for what's going to be probably a very successful USports career because she's already a student athlete as it sits today. She's got the skills.
And I completely agree with you. And it's funny because it's skills that you learn throughout high school and all these different situations that you don't even realize that you're learning. Mm-hmm. And it just comes so natural to her. And for her to speak so easy and like free going about having such a, obviously putting emphasis on a schedule, it's going to be what would be a very easy transition for her than somebody that hasn't gone through challenges. Like, I don't want to say challenges because it doesn't seem like a challenge to her at all.
No,
right?
No, she makes it. I just think it's like so mature of her that it caught me off guard because I know of course I'm not surprised that she's a mature young woman, but for her to associate those two things together already, I think, it
gives her a leg up.
Does. Because man, I'll be the first to say I wasn't good at it. When I left high school and went to university and you're juggling your academics and your practice schedule and workouts and all of those things, it's a lot, man.
Well, and when you think about it from the perspective too of all those different aspects of now you're going into a competitive environment, right? Because you're traveling. Yep. Like that's part of the piece of the pie too that a lot of people forget about when they're like, oh yeah, no, I can, handle workouts and games and things like that. It's like, okay, well now handle it when you got to get on a flight at 6 a.m. You have to have your papers in by noon. You got to play at 4, and so I think she's going to have such a easy transition just based off of her past.
I agree. And I one thing I did say to her, I'm excited to follow her. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about now us really putting in a concerted effort to make sure we stay on track with USports too, is that going into, so we've got 2 months before what are we, March, April, May, June, 3 months before graduation, Mia on the show. And I can't wait to have, after her first year, through her, if she plays 5 years, through her 5th year of basketball on this show, because I think it's going to be so fun to watch her evolve and grow at UBC. I'm excited about it.
I completely agree. And I'm going to say this because I thought it was so awesome when you're going through her stats and stuff.
Yeah.
So she's 6'1", right?
Yeah.
Wingspan, 6'2". Gets an inch.
Yeah. Well,
every inch counts.
You and I've done this. Any fun fact of all the people who know me in this world, I am not tall. I'm like 5'4". My wingspan, 5'10" and a half.
Yeah, you've got some.
I just
got a wingspan
monkey arms, man. It's the only reason I'm a good hugger, because I just wrap you.
I love it. Yeah, no, Mia's an absolute beauty. She's going to do great things at UBC.
Yeah. And then, it really led me into the next conversation that I got to have with LILLA Carpenter-BOESCH. And LILLA was the opposite end of this spectrum, right? Where we talked to Mia, who is entering her first year at UBC, and LILLA, who decided to come back for a 6th year after a pandemic year of no sports. So I think it was two sides of the coin, and I hope that everyone enjoys the time that I got to spend with LILLA, because I think she's going to do amazing things in this world. All right, so earlier on the show today, we got to interview a girl who's going to leave high school and head to university, and now we get to talk to a seasoned veteran. LILLA, welcome to the show. I want to give you a little pump your tires here just a little bit to get you fired up. LILLA has had an amazing season this year with the University of Regina Cougars. She's a hockey player. She posted 19 points this year, and we just saw some news that you were selected as a first-team All-Star from the booming metropolis, which I have driven through once or twice in my life, of Gray, Saskatchewan. LILLA, welcome to the show.
Wow, thanks for having me. Yep.
You gotta love the intro. Always makes you feel real good, doesn't it? Super awkward.
Yeah, I'm blushing over here. So.
I know I should have had you on FaceTime. No, I appreciate you coming on. I'm sure, not necessarily the way that you wanted your season to end, but it had to be nice getting back on the ice after a hiatus because of good old COVID, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that year kind of really let a lot of people almost transform, their play too. And by the time the season started, everyone was just ready to go. And I think we had to be happy with the outcome, whatever it was, because it's more than we got the year before. So
absolutely,
it's just really nice to be back.
Yeah, I think that's a great perspective. And that's one thing, maybe that a season like COVID did do for us is put it into perspective how privileged we are to get to play a game we love, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Yeah. So, you were obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, Gray is, how far? Well, not far southeast of Regina.
Yeah, it's about like 20 to 25 minutes southeast of Regina. It's like 120 people. Pretty small.
Yeah, it makes my hometown of Souris, Manitoba, which is like maybe 1,500 people, seem like a city in comparison to where you grew up. But you're obviously... Go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was just saying, it is definitely a small town. That is for sure. But
yeah, for sure. So had an awesome career with the Regina Rebels. My spouse coaches the Winnipeg Avros. So I've got to watch a lot of Rebels games over the years. Unfortunately for the Avros, sometimes those don't go their way. That's a really strong program that they have there. But you put up almost a point per game in your time with the Rebels. Obviously being close to Regina, was U of R always the top of your list to pursue a post-secondary career, or what went into making that decision for you?
At the time, I wasn't really I want to stay in Regina. I want to go to a specific place. There wasn't really like a sole location I wanted to end up. I think I just wanted to go where, you know, I was wanted and like where I felt the environment was already a positive one. I got to meet a couple of the players, and since I was already nearby, like I could work out with a few of them, and there's just a lot of really nice a lot of older players that were really inviting initially. And then at the time, it kind of just seemed like the right decision. I also think my mom was pretty happy that I stayed home because I have two older sisters that also played in the CIS. So I had one sister who played it for UBC and one sister who played at Nipissing for 2 years. So they're in opposite conferences, the Ontario Conference and then CIS West. Yeah. And my sister was like, you can't play on the same team as me. We're not doing that again because we played on the Rebels together. And I was like, okay, fair. So I wanted to do my own thing, and I wanted it kind of to go to a place that was mine, and, you know, I could make what I wanted for myself. And it worked out nice. It's nice being home, close to home. My mom can tell me when she's going to Costco, so I can get some groceries from her. Yeah. So that's a huge perk. And in the end, it ended up being really amazing because it allowed my family to see a lot of games and be really involved. Where, you know, when my sisters played in UBC and in Ontario, it was a lot harder for my parents to be able to go out and watch. So I think this is really important for, my family just to be able to come out and support. And, they come to pretty much every game, no matter where it was. So
no doubt. So are you the youngest? Are you the oldest, middle? Where did you get to play against your sisters at all?
Yeah, I'm the youngest. Two older sisters. My middle sister I played with on the Rebels, so her last year was my first year. Okay. And then her name's Joelle, and my oldest sister Jenna, I played against her in university. So my first year of university was her last year at UBC. So, and we played them 4 times, right? So those were always my favorite games in first year because I was going up against my big sister, and I knew a lot of the players on our team because they were kind of like, I used to fangirl over UBC for a while because my sister was on that team, so it was cool getting to play against all her friends. But obviously I was also wanting to win and maybe knock my sister down a few times. But
how are the outcomes against your sister?
UBC was always like a really strong team as they are now. They're pretty incredible, but I don't think my first year, I don't know, I can't even remember the scores. I remember they're always tight games because the Cougars, we always have really intense games against UBC. I feel like they might have won more on us than we did.
But as long as you got your knock in, I know, right? Yeah. As long as you got.
I mean, I was just thinking about how intensive games were, and clearly it was a battle. So I can't remember the score, but I can just remember it was just a fun game going into it. You'd always know.
That's amazing. I wish I could play my sister. She's I'm the older of 2 girls, and so she didn't pursue any post-secondary afterwards. But we grew up kind of same story as you. She's 2.5 years younger than me, so we got to play together more often than we got to play against each other. That's for sure. But that's awesome. And what a great experience for your parents too.
Yeah, it definitely was. I also have family who live in Seattle, Washington, so they'd come up for our games in UBC. And my mom actually, she made these jerseys half green, half blue, and she sewed them together. Yeah. And she could get her whole family to wear them because it's all they could decide who to cheer for. But
that's awesome.
So they're cheering for both teams essentially. But it was pretty enjoyable. You kind of forget now how cool that first year was, getting to experience that.
For sure. That's awesome. I think, I do want to touch on, I want to come back to this year because I think for you, obviously you would have been a leader in that locker room and just the performance that you had this year, putting up incredible numbers, but you guys had an enormous class of rookies come in this year, 14 players. Some of them that I got to watch for the last few years, and Trinity Grove played for the Avros for my wife, and Shay Scrabba's from my hometown, so there's some local connections for me there. What was that like for you? Having to obviously be in a leadership role in that dressing room with a whack of young players.
It was just really interesting because half of those players are technically second years, but they're still rookies, right? Because we didn't have the season before. So we did practice for 2 months, like the year that COVID got canceled. So I did get to know quite a few of the players. But then, everything got shut down. We were doing like Zoom meetings, and you can't really connect with players and people as much over Zoom. Obviously, in person is ideal. So, and I also was technically done hockey. I came out of retirement to play this year. So I actually technically quit and then came back. So I wasn't even in the loop all summer. A lot of people didn't know who I was going into this year. And I kind of just showed up one day and started meeting everyone. And yeah, you're right. There's a lot of new faces. And I was like, okay, I don't know anyone's names because I haven't really been in the loop with anything. I just kind of showed up. But it was like pretty incredible because there's players that I did know last year that I became really close with this year. And then when you think about how many rookies we had this year and how important they were like with us throughout the game, like they had a pretty, I think, I don't want to say a heavy load, but they obviously like performed really incredibly for like being first years because the level of play is it increases a lot from midget to university, like obviously you'd know that. And then we had our first year goalie who's starting, Arden, and she was incredible. Like you said, Trinity was incredible. We had like a lot of those players on the power play too in our rookie class. So it's honestly really exciting. I kind of wish this was in my 6th year and I wasn't done because like you can just see there's a really good young core right now and a lot of really strong players that you're hoping it's just going to go up for them. And the next few years, they can just have a really strong young team. So it's mostly just pretty exciting. And I hope I can watch it happen.
No doubt. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about that. What's the plan now? You're going to graduate with what from university?
So I graduated last year, so the winter 2021 semester with a business degree with a major in marketing. Okay, cool. And then this year I came back and I was finishing a public relations certificate. So I had like 3 classes left I need to complete. So I took 2 of those courses fall semester and 1 this semester. So that's what I'm doing, finishing that. And then I'm really trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I have been considering if I want to play overseas, and there's a kind of a process that goes into that. So like a lot of networking, video, reaching out to people who's going to respond to you, right? Because they have their own seasons going on. There's also a huge time zone difference. But that is something I am really interested in, whether it's like super competitive league or if it's just an experience. I think anyone would agree if they could travel abroad for a year and take in a new experience, then they should. And if I have the opportunity to do that, I would really like to do that.
Absolutely. I'm going to say that as someone who came out of university and went straight into the workforce. I came home and I think I was unemployed for a grand total of 3 weeks and then started into professional life and still played casually with my friends, but I would encourage you, and I'm glad you're taking the time to think it through because I think it's an opportunity, and now more than ever, right? I mean, we're going back now 12 years for me when I graduated from university. Hockey has evolved so much in that time, and if you have an opportunity, life will always be here. Adult world will always be here. Jobs will always find you. If you have an opportunity, I'm glad you're taking the time to consider them all because I think it's a sport that has given all of us so much, and to be able to take that on and continue to do it while you just, get to live your life and grow up. Absolutely.
No, yeah, I totally agree. And I'm not rushing into the workforce by any means. I'm like, no, I do not want to do this right away.
Well, you got a good degree. You'll find a job. Life
is too short to work all the time though. So
for sure.
Yeah, and either that or I'll hope to travel a bit this summer too. Before life gets too serious. So.
Absolutely. Good for you.
I'm hoping for it.
Yeah, I do want to ask you also just about this season. I know I've briefly swept it over, right? I've said, 19 points. You were selected, as a first team All-Star, which congratulations on that, by the way. But
thank you.
Just want to ask you, obviously, so we've heard you thought you were going to call it quits and you came back. You had a huge rookie class of kind of a mixed bag of first and second years, but first year on the ice kind of thing. What do you attribute? Was it just time? Was it experience? What do you attribute to having such a successful year this year as you close out your USports career?
I think for me, it was just kind of like a wake up call. I was like, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it like 100%. So I don't know about you, but I gained a lot of weight over COVID because I was sitting at home doing nothing all day. And hockey was over. So I was like, if I'm going to do this and come back, I want to be better than I've ever been before. So I like started like changing my diet completely. I trained with my like personal trainer, Stefan. I worked out with him since I was in like 11th grade, kind of on and off. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to have my best year yet. I want to, like, how do we do that? So we started in like March working out like 3 to 4 times a week, and just like pretty hardcore workouts, like everything, cardio, lifting, everything. Mm-hmm. And then I just started kind of like losing weight. Not that like that's a huge part of it, but then my kind of confidence started building as well, because I was just feeling like mentally stronger. Mm-hmm. I'm someone who like my mental health was like always kind of something that was hard to navigate through the earlier years. And I think that was a lot, attributes a lot to why I wasn't able to perform as well, because I was kind of in a mental space that wasn't completely confident and wasn't completely inviting. And this year I was like, I'm going to create a mental space for myself that is going to help me, flourish, as weird a word as that is, rather than knock myself down, because I think I was someone who did a lot of negative self-talk, and it was harmful for me. So I'm like, this year's going to be different. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to be as positive as I can, and I'm just going to like be proud of myself for whatever steps I take, or for whatever I get in return for the work I'm putting in. I'm just going to be proud of it. Absolutely. And I ended up having like a lot of people in my corner that were like super supportive, and it almost got to the point where I'm like, they're more confident in me than I was yet. But it was like really incredible, because over time it kind of just like reflected onto me, and I was like, okay, I'm confident now. And it didn't always start that way, but then we went into the season, and the more games I got in, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I need to shoot more. Like, yeah. I actually can score quite a bit, and then it just kind of kept like spiraling from there. And I was just building like more and more confident as we go. And I'd never been that confident before. Yep. And it was like a bit stressful at times, because we weren't really in a playoff spot, but I just kind of had this like faith that like we are going to make playoffs. We are going to do this. Just like stick to the course. Like mentally you're strong enough to deal with this. You just got to like keep pushing for it. And that was just kind of like, the mindset was just to be in a better mental space this year than any year before.
Absolutely. And I think, it's an incredible way and perspective that you've gained for a young adult to, I think, recognize that. And I think that's part of, again, back to the growth that you experienced through your time at U of R. And an incredible thing for people to hear, that I think, and we're seeing it more and more, and Addie and I have talked a lot about it, and I think it's only positive. Just the ability to have a conversation. Let's be honest, we're basically strangers. To have a candid conversation with a stranger over the phone on a podcast that's going to live live on the internet, that's, people around you can see. I'm super proud of you for sharing that, because I think that so many people need to hear it. And I think you've done a ton of work for yourself that other people are also going to see, and hopefully give them some confidence too, to see you grow. So thanks for sharing that. That was great.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, what else do you got in your mind, Lilla? That's all I had on my list for you. I appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate you, your willingness to be so open and candid. Is there any last words that you want to share with anyone listening? A little plug of U of R or anything like that before I let you go?
I feel like I should be giving a shout out, but I guess I'll just give a shout out to my Cougs and our future Cougs. And I think just women athletes in general. I think it's really important. Obviously, this is what this podcast is about. So absolutely. Just continuing to strengthen the women's game and promote it, because y'all are incredible.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that's a great way for us to end this. I can't wait for you to come back on the show someday, Lilla, soon. And whether that's as just a person in life, or if you pursue hockey further, stay in touch with Addie and I, and we'd love to get you back on the show.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks for joining me.
Have a good one.
Okay. Bye-bye. Yeah, she is going to be a special person in this world. And like I said to her in our interview ads, I can't wait to watch her if she does pursue, hockey past now, whether that's overseas or someday in the PHF or the PWHPA, because she's incredibly grounded. She talked so openly. And like I said on our interview, we're essentially strangers. And she is willing on this platform that is going to live on the internet for her peers to see and hear, to talk about her own journey with her own mental health and understanding that that was one of the places she needed to grow. And she used to be hard on herself. And she went into this season, which is largely what gave her, I think, the competitive edge to put up great numbers and be a first team all-star, in that she was willing to just take everything in stride. Whatever she achieved, it was a focus on her own mental health. And I think that's a message that whether you're in sports or out of sports, everyone should have heard.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I really hope she continues. There's such a world of amazingness when you follow sports after, your university career, and she's doing this. She's heading up. Yeah. Right? And who knows where that could go if she continues that, that work that she put into herself, leaving in arguably the best year of her career, and taking that same mentality and, growing it in a different league, I think would be super special. But I think you're bang on in, the openness to talk about the actual challenges that come to play when you are an athlete, and you're playing at such a high level needs to be talked about more, like a lot more, when it comes to high level performance.
Yeah, because I think that we've seen it a lot in professional women's sports, and we've seen it a lot through USports, or I think about Ash's hockey team, AAA levels. The world is a beautiful place in that way, where I think it's changed a lot, even since you and I were in the sport, where people are a lot more willing to talk about it. It still breaks my heart, the fact that, you were showing me earlier today, the video of Naomi Osaka having to address fans in the stands at a professional tennis tournament because she was visibly upset. And I don't know. I wish the world was a more beautiful place than that, where someone is doing something they love and then feels like they just get shit on for it.
Yeah, and then had to take a timeout in the middle of the match to just kind of refocus and, kind of get back into where she wants to play from. Mm-hmm. But then even in the interview at the end, she says, I've watched a video of Serena and Venus playing here where people were just ridiculously heckling them, and they have, they never really will want to play there again at Indian Wells because of the heckling and things like that. So, there's talking about mental health. It is definitely, you're right, becoming a lot more open and accepted, and that's the direction that it needs to continue. There's no question, and it hits everybody different. So for Lilla and her experiences and what she needed to get through, it just shows when you put the time and effort into yourself, and you start finding that love and that passion for the game again, good things come out of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely couldn't agree more with that. Well, this has been the strangest episode yet. Episode 16 will be in my memory bank for a long time because it is a lonely desk.
I miss it.
I know, but I'm glad you're not feeling too bad. We will get you back in here next week. So ads, we're going to reverse the roles this week because it only seems fitting when everything is off. And this episode has felt weird that you are not going to ask me. I'm going to tell you, even if you're not here, you felt like you were here, and I want to give you the opportunity to end off the week by saying, Addie, final words.
Oh, wow. That feels good. Well, obviously, huge thank you to Mia and Lilla for coming on the show with us today. Two unbelievable athletes with great perspectives, and it's something that we are going to put a very strong effort into, is putting more effort to USports, making sure that those athletes' stories and you know, everything that they've done throughout their career are being followed, watched, listened to. And thank you to everybody. Once again, this is just the best time of the week, and we cannot wait for everybody to hear our interview next week with Jacqueline Hawkins, who is going to be unbelievable as well too. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, and thanks for rolling with me this week, Cowie. I appreciate it.
It's been an adventure, bud. I love you for it. We'll chat soon.
All right, have a good one, buddy.
Take care, folks.